Ignition sequence start. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Liftoff. We have a liftoff.
Hey everybody, this is the Digital Asset Investor, and look at this corporate layoff spike as companies prepare for tariff shocks. And then we had this, UPS axes 48,000 workers in sweeping cost cut push, sparking stock surge. Just a little reminder, folks, if you're one of these people that's being laid off for one of 1,000 reasons, a great thing you can do with my partner iTrustCapital is you can roll your 401k into an IRA in full or in part, and you can buy crypto and gold and silver inside your IRA. I did it, or I didn't roll over a 401k, but I opened an IRA there, and with that you get the free institutional grade custody as well. And you don't have to worry about whether or not somebody's going to steal your crypto tomorrow. It's a great thing. Go to iTrustCapital.com/XRP Army if you'd like to open an account. It'll take you straight to this page. I've enjoyed iTrustCapital ever since I got an account there back in 2018 or 19. 265 XRP. We're at 3.82 trillion in the market. Oh, what do we have here? Do you know how many years from how many people we caught hell for suggesting the offensive suggestion, the wild speculation is what it was wild speculation, crazy. They said the idea that parts of the XRP escrow were pre-allocated was just insane. Well, look what David Schwartz said here in a tweet. Ripple could sell the right. What is an option? It's the right. Ripple could sell the right to receive tokens released from escrow, or even sell the accounts the escrows complete into. But the XRP still can't circulate until their release dates. And I said, like pre-allocated XRP options contracts. This is adult land right here, folks. This is what myself and Brad Combs from Digital Perspectives and a handful of others recognized early on, that just because you aren't told about it, just because you don't see it, doesn't mean that in adult land this is the way things work. The idea, we've always said, the idea that Greg Kidd got an option on 1 billion XRP and R3 had an option, I can't remember the amount, but I think it was like 5 billion. The idea that those are the only two people or entities that wanted to get an option contract on some of that XRP and escrow is absurd, silly, and childish. There were 1,700 contracts from the lawsuit, and nobody knows what the contracts are about because they were kept secret, even during the lawsuit. Welcome to adulthood, folks. JP Morgan's altcoin ETF forecast is wild. 8 billion inflows for XRP, 6 billion for Solana. Here's why this matters. XRP's real-world utility in cross-border payments. A clear regulatory path equals institutional favorite. Solana is fast, but XRP has the banking relationships that TradFi actually wants. We could see 50 billion in a few months. Uh-oh. Jack McDonald is retweeting that this is Securitize, leading tokenization platform to become a public company at 1.25 billion valuation via business combination with Cantor Equity Partners to tokenize the world. Very exciting news from Carlos Domingo, who's the CEO, and team Securitize on announcing their IPO plans. Exciting times ahead. You got that right. And then yesterday there was a Solana Western Union announcement. Dom from EZA explains the real world to people.
So a lot of you have tagged us in posts about the Western Union announcement today saying that they are building stablecoin on Solana. A lot of you are very concerned about this killing XRP's use case as a bridge currency. But in case you hadn't been in the EZA app, that's far from it. XRP as a bridge currency is just one part of XRP's use cases within the ecosystem. And if you've been in the EZA app, you would have known that. So go check it out. And I'd also just personally recommend you check out the Ripple Primer on precisely this topic. You'll understand that this is part of a much bigger internet of value play that's going on right now. So check it out in the EZA app and spare yourself the stress.
You know, the same guys that said $1,000 XRP by 2030. And then Chris Giancarlo was on a guy's YouTube channel, The Internet of Value. He explains it perfectly here, and it's here. It's coming. It's here.
Crypto is more than just a funky new asset class. Crypto is really a whole new architecture of finance. It's an internet-based architecture of finance. You know, the earlier wave of the internet, the one we're all familiar with, the Internet of Information, was all about computers talking to each other. Well, now we're on the verge of a new wave of the internet. It's no longer about computers talking to each other. It's about computers transacting with each other. And they're going to do that in the form of digital tokens. Computers are not going to contact your bank to make payments to another computer. They're going to find direct means through tokenized units of value to pay for things, whether those are stable coins, which are basically tokens pegged to the dollar, or other forms of digitized value tokens. That's the future of the 21st century.
Boom. Now, I've told you, I've tried to tell you, there's a reason everybody ignores the elephant in the room, but here it is. Bitcoin was deployed out of the financial crisis strategically. Step one, financial crisis. 2, government takes Bitcoin off the shelf, and I do mean off the shelf. 3, spend a decade making it look like the government wasn't behind it. 4, implement regulations. 5, tokenize all markets, making them liquid to prevent another financial crisis. 6, preserve the U.S. dollar's dominance and replace the petrodollar system. But you don't have to. Chris Giancarlo is not going to come out and say it. But it's not hard to read between the lines. Watch this. Listen to every word.
I was in communications with the Federal Reserve throughout the crisis.
And remember while you watch this, this is the guy who created Bitcoin futures, which set it all in motion.
This is the leader of $1.5 trillion of payouts to other banks. We can't let this contagion to rage. So what we've got to do is stuff all the banks' balance sheets with cash, known as the Troubled Asset Relief Program, in the same way their fire brigade wets down the houses around the one that's on fire so the other houses don't go up in fire. Well, that number to me struck me. I was in communications with the Federal Reserve throughout the crisis as the leader of external relations for our firm and as the head of our industry trade association. And I knew from our activity on the trading floor that every time one bank wrote such protection against the failure of another bank, they would turn around and re-hedge the position. So if they believe that the total amount paid out on the failure of Lehman Brothers was $400 billion, I believe that the net amount was much less than that. But I didn't know the exact, in fact, nobody knew the exact amount. And that's why we had a panic in the market, because nobody knew the exact fallout. Well, later on, I read the Satoshi Nakamoto white paper, and it proposed that if all these swaps were written on a blockchain, we would have known the net figure. And in fact, because of work done by Professor Bruce Tuckman, who subsequently worked for me at the CFTC as our chief economist, we now know that a failure of Lehman Brothers would have not required a payout of $400 billion. It would have not been $200 billion. It would have not been $80 billion. It would have been less than $8 billion because of all the re-hedging that was done. Well, we didn't know that in 2008. It's the reason we had a financial crisis. But if we knew that, policymakers would have had a lot of different choices. They could have let Lehman fail. They could have let it been bought. They could have let it been bought out. They didn't have those choices because they didn't have the visibility. And that's when I became a believer in the blockchain, because if we had a blockchain, if all those swaps were written on a blockchain in 2008, we would have known in real time, and perhaps we might not have had a financial crisis. So when President Obama asked me to join the CFTC, nominated me to join as a commissioner in 2014, I became very active in this area, followed it closely, spoke about it publicly, and joined with my fellow commissioners in 2015 to declare Bitcoin the world's first digital commodity, and therefore under the supervision of the U.S. Commodity Futures Trading Commission. And in 2017, when I was named chairman of the agency, I immediately set out to make the agency the lead agency on everything having to do with digital commodities. We were the first to create a dedicated resource center in the federal government for financial markets and digital commodities under the leadership of our first chief innovation officer, Daniel Gorfine. And then we greenlighted the launch of Bitcoin futures at the end of 2017. We were very conscious that one of the reasons why the dollar is the world's reserve currency is because most of the world's physical commodities are priced in dollars. And they're priced in dollars not in the spot market. The oil's not priced in dollars at the gas tank, and gold's not priced at the jewelry store. It's actually priced in the derivative markets, in the futures markets that are priced in dollars. And so we wanted to make sure that Bitcoin, as the world's first digital commodity, would also be priced in dollars. And we greenlighted our great U.S. Commodity derivatives exchanges like the Chicago Mercantile Exchange to launch the world's first regulated market for digital commodities in Bitcoin futures and eventually Ethereum futures and XRP futures and others. And today those...
Remember, he greenlit the Bitcoin futures under the first Trump administration.
Markets that we started back in 2017 are deep and they're liquid and they're transparent and they're remarkably free of fraud and manipulation thanks to the really sound supervision by the U.S. Commodity Futures Exchange and some of the self-regulatory organizations. And it was not long after that I was called to testify before the Senate Banking Committee about those choices we made to launch those derivative markets in digital commodities.
And who was sitting beside him when he did that? I think it was Jay Clayton.
There were a number of critics
while he was at the SEC
of that decision who felt we were legitimizing Bitcoin. My feeling was it was for Congress to either legitimize it or outlaw it. As long as a legal product, our job was to put a regulatory structure around it, which we did. And it was at that hearing that I actually advocated for Congress to step up to the plate and deliver sound regulatory frameworks. And that's where I earned the nickname Crypto Dad.
Now, I believe that we've witnessed digital currency wars. That includes ETHgate and all this stuff. I'm in the group. After I show you this, I'm going to show you why and a lot of the people I think were involved in the digital currency wars. How I think J.P. Morgan has been involved in all this. I'm going to go over all that stuff. But there are no coincidences. Here's the timeline, the financial crisis. March 16th, 2008, Bear Stearns collapses. September 7th, 2008, U.S. government seizes Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. September 15th, Lehman Brothers files for bankruptcy. September 25th, Washington Mutual fails, largest U.S. bank failure. October 3rd, President Bush signs Emergency Economic Stabilization Act, TARP. And then on October 31st, Bitcoin white paper gets published. What are the chances? Out of nowhere. November 4th, global stock markets in free fall. Fed cuts rates to near zero. January 3rd, Bitcoin Genesis block mined. January 12th, first Bitcoin transaction. October 5th, 2009, first Bitcoin exchange rate established. And you think that Satoshi is some libertarian good guy that just doesn't like money in his mom's basement? Give me a break. Okay, I'm going to go further into this. We'll even talk about some of their operatives in DAIXRP.com. That's the Patreon. If you'd rather join through YouTube, click join below any of these videos. If you'd rather join through X, hit subscribe. I'm the digital asset investor. I'm not an investment advisor. This is for entertainment purposes only. Please subscribe. Hit the like button. Tell your friends and family. Here we go.